What if in the 2022 season, roles were reversed and Leclerc drove for Red Bull Racing and Max Verstappen drove for Ferrari? Would the outcome have been the same? Would Verstappen still win the championship? Would Leclerc have actually taken over and taken the championship? Which driver would perform better, given the different circumstances? Well, I made like a kind of speculation thing about it. So I'm taking out bad luck, so disregard Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Spain, and Baku. I think those are the 4 races where the cars had mechanical DNFs. So they could not continue into the race. I'm taking that out and speculating as if they finished the races. Now, stuff like Imola or France, I'm not counting that Leclerc crashed in those races, or whether it be Verstappen in Singapore. I'm taking it where I think they would have finished in that potential race, regardless of the outcome. Let's start off the season. We're starting it off in Bahrain, which we knew was a banger in 2022, and the Ferrari and the Red Bull seemed, I would say, practically on pace with each other. So, considering they're on pace,
last moment,
Verstappen
and has he
He's done it again, he's going for it again, Max Verstappen, and he's got a quarter of a...
Being smart, being slick, but the Ferrari did seem like the better car here, even though the Red Bull had the better pace. Everything throughout the track seemed Ferrari-esque, and I am giving Bahrain to Verstappen. So Verstappen comes home with 25 points and his first win of the season. Leclerc finishing second. We go on to Saudi Arabia, the second race of the season, where the Red Bull car does have a, I would say, better advantage over the Ferrari car. Now, if you remember this race, I would say that Leclerc was the better driver in this race, but Max had the better vehicle to perform in. That straight line speed was a little too much for Leclerc to handle at the time while he was driving for Ferrari, now a Red Bull Oracle racer. Now that Red Bull has Leclerc, Leclerc performed better here. He had the straight line speed and he overtook Verstappen to have his first win of the season, calling it neck and neck, 25 points to each and 18 points to each now. So they are tied in the season. Australia comes along, and we know what happened in Australia last time, the Ferrari and the Red Bull reversing. Ferrari kicked Red Bull's ass. I mean, that's just a matter of the fact. The Ferrari was the better car in Australia. It performed better. It exceeded in what it needed to do. Even though it was a track that really looked like a Red Bull track. We didn't get much action. We did get a little bit of action off of Verstappen on the safety car restart, where he almost caught Leclerc, but the car didn't have much pace, and they did DNF. But he was solidly in second. Leclerc was solidly in first. This time, we're flipping it around. Verstappen, solidly first. Leclerc, solidly second. So, we have Verstappen's second win in the season. On to Imola. We know what happened in Imola. We're not counting sprints. Forgot to mention that. No sprints in this included. But, in the actual race itself, it was a partially wet race. We know how Verstappen performs in wet races. The Ferrari car was just as fast as the Red Bull car here. I can argue that for sure. I am giving Imola to Verstappen. Leclerc takes second place with 18 points. On to Miami. Now, Miami, we know, was a Verstappen victory. The Red Bull car was dominant, in my opinion, in Miami. Leclerc had the qualifying pace. He is the better qualifier out of the two, and we know that he can push everything out of that car. So Leclerc takes Miami 25. Verstappen takes second place. Carlos did not compete with Verstappen. Verstappen takes second place. We have a 25 to an 18. Leclerc takes the victory. Spain, and we know what was happening here in Spain. If it wasn't for the mechanical failure, that Ferrari car was flying. They were beaming the whole entire race. Really performed like how that Ferrari car is supposed to perform up until its engine exploding. So we are giving this victory to Verstappen, taking the 25 points. But Leclerc does fight back and gets a second place in this race. The Mercedes cars were pretty quick, but they weren't quick enough, I don't think, to compete with the Red Bull car. He's better than Perez, so he takes the fight over Perez and puts himself into that 18-point conversion. Carlos Sainz was not close. Monaco. Guess who breaks the curse? Leclerc. I am saying Leclerc because of the qualifying pace. He was so exceedingly fast in qualifying. He would have taken first, whether it would have been with a Red Bull or a Ferrari. it didn't really feel like the Ferrari car was that much more dominant than the Red Bull, even though it was kind of suited more for the Ferrari. I would still say that Red Bull and Ferrari were extremely close, and I'm going to give Leclerc the victory in Monaco and him finally breaking his curse of just bad moments in Monaco. Even though, in reality, he'd probably lose this race somehow. By some chance of luck, anytime we're in Monaco, Leclerc can't even finish on the podium. Okay, we're on to Baku. Now, personally, I think the Red Bull car was way faster than the Ferrari car here, and they were really pushing it to the limit. Leclerc did what he could do, outqualified himself, but if the race would have continued with Leclerc in the Ferrari and Max in the Red Bull, Max and Perez would have overtaken Leclerc. Mark my words, I think that the Red Bull car was faster, had better tire management, and if you remember correctly, Leclerc pit stopped early to try and get a huge advantage on the other two. Their tires were not going to last, Red Bulls were. They were going to take that victory. So, for Baku, we finally don't have a 1-2 between these guys. I put Leclerc as the winner in Baku and Verstappen at 15 points. I think Perez and Leclerc would have been faster than Verstappen in Baku. Silverstone comes along, which was probably the most competitive race we had between the two up until, well, other than what we really had one in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. We're in Silverstone. The Ferrari car is quick. The Red Bull car is quick. Out of the two, Verstappen was catching the Ferraris last time. So you would think that there's more pace in the Red Bull. I think it was Verstappen. So I'm giving the Silverstone victory to Verstappen in the Ferrari car, taking advantage of having that Ferrari power and passing Leclerc. Leclerc does finish in second by not being put onto the, or not staying onto the hard tires during the safety car, like what did happen in 2022. That doesn't happen. No bad luck for Leclerc. He actually has a decent chance at this. So a 25-18, Verstappen takes the victory in Silverstone. We move on to Austria, where the Ferrari car was quicker. It actually had the better tire degradation, it performed better, and genuinely looked like the faster car throughout the weekend, in my opinion, and most other people's opinions. So I will say that Austria goes to Verstappen, with Leclerc actually taking third. I think Verstappen and Carlos would have passed Leclerc. The Ferrari car seemed quicker, the Red Bull car was lacking on pace. I definitely don't think Leclerc would have the pace to be able to keep up with Verstappen in this race. So Verstappen takes Austria. Now we move on to France, where, yet again, we would have had an insanely awesome performance if it wasn't for that stupid crash that Leclerc had. And it was a neck and neck battle the whole entire time. I think the Ferrari was just as quick. It was so fast in that third sector that the Red Bull couldn't keep up with it and overtake it. I think Verstappen would have exceeded expectations with that car, and I'm giving Verstappen the victory while Leclerc takes second in a neck and neck battle in France. We move on to Hungary, where the Ferrari car was faster than the Red Bull, and it should have been if Ferrari aren't such doofuses and they put them on that garbage clown strategy of putting hard tires on. That doesn't happen. Verstappen takes the victory in Hungary, which Leclerc couldn't pull off, and Leclerc ends up finishing in second through having good pace and probably keeping up with Verstappen for most of the race, because they were pretty close to Red Bull and the Ferrari. But this track did suit the Ferrari's attributes a lot more than the Red Bull's attributes. So we made it to our halfway point. Half of the season is over. Our first half of the season is done. Where do our competitors match up in points? Well, for Leclerc, he has 197 points. For Verstappen, he has 287 points, with Ferrari being ahead and beating the Red Bull in the first half of the season. Will the trend continue? Well, if we go into Belgium, we know that this Red Bull car was a laser on the straights, and a laser really in general in Belgium. I would say that the car here in Belgium, there was no possible way for Ferrari to even compete with either Red Bull. So 25 points to Leclerc, 15 points to Verstappen. Taking the first win of the second half is Charles Leclerc, who is aiming for a comeback. And he's down by 90 points. 90 points at the halfway is a hard margin to come back in. We move on to Netherlands, Verstappen's homeland, the land where he knows how to drive that car. Well, Ferrari wasn't that quick here, believe it or not. The Mercedes cars were pretty fast, and the Ferrari cars were not that fast. I think Leclerc takes the win, with Verstappen actually getting either nicked by Perez or Hamilton. But I'm saying Hamilton is going to be the one in Netherlands that actually ends up taking that P2 spot, while Verstappen takes P3. We move on to Monza, and now we see this Red Bull dominance. Here comes win number 3 in a row. Come on, play the track.
And in Spa, he wins in Monza. Charles Leclerc is the winner.
Yep, he wins in Spa, he wins in Monza. Leclerc has now won 3 in a row, winning Netherlands, Belgium, and Monza. Leclerc is mounting for that comeback. He's mounting for that comeback, but Verstappen is not giving up. 18 points on the board for Verstappen, takes that second place to keep competing. Singapore was a tricky track, but it did seem like the Ferrari had a little advantage over that Red Bull. Now, obviously, we had the thing that happened in qualifying where Verstappen would have blasted past Leclerc practically like a whole second in that qualifying. So I'm saying Verstappen takes qualifying, takes first place, and keeps first place that whole race, taking 25 points, while Leclerc takes 15 points in Singapore. I do think Verstappen and Carlos would have passed Leclerc in Singapore. I think Perez would have had the better race over Leclerc. So Leclerc takes 15 points. We move on to Japan, and this one was kind of an easy one. If you guys remember, the Red Bull car was a killer in Japan. It was a killer. Its tires looked like nothing even happened. Now, if you look at the Ferrari tires, wow, looks like they put it through spikes the whole entire race. This is a easy Leclerc victory in that Red Bull streamlining past the Ferrari, with the Ferrari actually taking third place because Perez and Leclerc were both ahead. Just like in real life, Leclerc ended up finishing third. Verstappen now ends up finishing third in that Ferrari car, not being able to compete as high as he could have been. We move on to the USA. Yes, America's Kota. Here, the Red Bull car seemed yet again to have the advantage, but the Ferrari car was good in qualifying, and Carlos Sainz actually put it up into pole in USA. So, who puts it up into pole? It's Verstappen. Maybe he has a chance to actually keep up with Leclerc in this race. That doesn't happen. Leclerc has the pace, conserves his tires perfectly, does what he needs to do, and in USA, Leclerc comes back, takes the victory, with Verstappen taking second, with Hamilton coming a close third. So we have a 25 to an 18 point in the USA. We're down to our last 3 tracks. We have Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi. So what ends up actually happening in these 3 races? Well, I will tell you. In Mexico, Leclerc blows Max Verstappen out of the water. The Ferrari car is garbage in Mexico. They had to turn down their engine. Nothing was really working right for that Ferrari car. Mercedes cars are super competitive, but Leclerc is smart, does the right strategy, goes to get 25 points, competing at the highest of levels, somewhat performing like how Max did in Mexico 2022. Getting the tire strategy out, getting 25 points on the board for Leclerc, getting a victory, while Verstappen doesn't beat either of the Red Bulls or either of the Mercedes, and gets a 5th place for only 10 points. Is Leclerc back in the fight? Well, we'll find out in a couple of races. We move on to Brazil, where the Red Bull and the Ferrari are not the strongest car on the grid. Wow, shocker, right? The Red Bull or the Ferrari does not finish first or second. First of the year, yay! Finally, it is not either of the teams on the top. So who is it then? Who do you think wins the race? Well, I hypothetically made it Hamilton. Hamilton takes the 25 points in the Mercedes because it seemed like the strongest car on the grid. But what I do have happen, I think the Ferrari was a bit quicker than the Red Bull. It was very neck and neck, very close. But I am giving Verstappen second place with 18 points and Leclerc taking a close third with 15 points. Still keeping Leclerc in the fight. Let's see what happens in Abu Dhabi. So we go to the last race of the season with something to fight for? Maybe not. Who is actually ahead? Well, who do I have winning for Abu Dhabi is the more important part. Abu Dhabi seemed like the track that the Red Bull was faster on. While the Ferrari was close, I think Leclerc was pushing it to the limits to keep it close. So, now that Leclerc is in different, better machinery, Leclerc takes the victory in Abu Dhabi, with Verstappen taking second. Roles reversed. Okay, we get to the end of the season. You don't actually know what has happened. Well, like I said, the halfway point was Leclerc with 197, Verstappen 287. Have the scripts flipped? Has Leclerc finally won his first championship? Well, I'll tell you this. Verstappen won 9 races by the end of the season. 21 races were won by either the Ferrari or the Red Bull. 9 were won by Verstappen. Now, how much do you think Leclerc won? If you do the math, Leclerc wins 12 races. But Leclerc did have a couple performances that were out of second, had a couple third places. Did Verstappen have any of those? He did. Mexico was a terrible track. There were a couple of other performances where the Ferrari was not good. So, your final result in the points and who is your winner for the 2022 season, Leclerc has 471 points to end the season, and Verstappen has 439 points. Falling in second, while Leclerc is your winner, and the scripts have changed. Red Bull is yet again a winner in the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship, but with a different threat in a man called Charles Leclerc. Little bonus that I just did at the very end of the season. If we count Bahrain, Australia, Baku, and Spain, who would be your winner? Well, guess what? It doesn't change. But Leclerc gets 442 points and Verstappen gets 402. So they both obviously lose points from the DNFs and it falling down. But Leclerc benefits a little bit more because when Verstappen did DNF, he gained a couple points on him because of that. And Verstappen only gained 3 points. So it really wasn't that big of a difference for most of these. So yeah, that is with bad luck. Leclerc is still your 2022 winner. Did you guys enjoy the video? I had a lot of fun making this one. I actually really enjoyed it and think it's one of the best on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed. A like and a subscribe would be very appreciated. And welcome to 2023. This is going to be a killer year for me and the channel and for you guys to come along. So I'm very happy to have all of you. I hope that we can continue with these amazing videos and amazing likes and comments and so on. I love the community that I have. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.